There is no denying that they geographically belong to South America, but they possess so many cultural and historical differences that it sometimes feels like an entirely different land. Is there truly a trio of entities, or does a fourth one exist? We invite you to explore all the mysteries and wonders hidden within the Guianas region. South America is a vast and diverse land spanning nearly 18 million square kilometers, larger even than Russia, the world's largest country by area. When thinking about South America, various landscapes might come to mind: the beaches of Brazil, the Andean region, the Caribbean coast, or the glaciers. It is far less likely that this particular land would be the first to appear in our minds when thinking of South America. People often lump the Guianas countries together as if they were one, but in reality, they are very different. We have the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, a former British colony that gained independence in 1966. To the east lies the Republic of Suriname, previously known as Dutch Guyana, which ceased its dependence on Amsterdam in 1975. Finally, there is French Guiana, an overseas region rather than a colony, which is 100% France. Citizens here have the same rights and obligations as those in Paris, Lyon, or Marseille, and it is even a part of the European Union. The disconnection between the Guianas countries and the other 10 South American nations can be seen in many different ways. Originally, the entire South American region was colonized by nations of the Iberian Peninsula, namely Spain and Portugal, which is why they speak Spanish or Portuguese. Additionally, there are similarities in their histories of gaining independence, as they achieved sovereignty within a few decades of the 19th century. In contrast, the three countries in northern South America fell under the influence of other European powers. Consequently, they speak English, Dutch, and French respectively, accompanied by local variations and coexisting with indigenous languages. Furthermore, as noted, Guyana and Suriname gained independence much later, in the second half of the 20th century, while French Guiana continues to depend on Paris. Another typical difference is seen in football. The South American Football Confederation, CONMEBOL, brings together the 10 familiar South American nations, but excludes Suriname and Guyana. These teams play in CONCACAF alongside Central and North American countries. Can you imagine Suriname traveling to the Centenario Stadium in Montevideo every 4 years to play qualifiers? Or Guyana competing in the high altitude of Quito? Or even the clubs from these nations competing in the Copa Libertadores? That is truly unimaginable. In fact, in the playoff matches for the 2026 World Cup, Bolivia and Suriname faced each other, playing as representatives of two different confederations, despite sharing a common neighbor, Brazil, and being only 1,600 kilometers apart. This is akin to Nigeria playing a match against Egypt, not in the African qualifiers, but in a playoff where both teams represent two different confederations. Not only in language and sports, but the Guianas countries also have cultural differences compared to the rest of the subcontinent. Demographically and ethnically, very striking characteristics emerge. For example, Guyana has about 40% of its population of Indian descent, while Afro-descendants make up nearly 30%. In Suriname, alongside a significant proportion of people of Indian descent, we also find nearly 15% of Javanese descent. This is explained by the fact that both Suriname and Indonesia, where the island of Java is located, were once Dutch colonies, and many workers were moved from one place to another. In French Guiana, in addition to the Maroons and Creoles found in its two neighbors, there are inhabitants from mainland France itself. In fact, the Kourou Space Center is located here, which is the most important center of the European Union, attracting scientists and experts from other continents, and there is even a large group of Laotian people who migrated here in the late 1970s. These differences also translate into religion. While the rest of the subcontinent has a predominantly Catholic historical background, the Guianas region presents a different diversity. For instance, 31% of the population practices Hinduism in Guyana, and 14% of Suriname's residents are Muslims. Added to this is the very small population living in the Guianas. Between Guyana's 815,000 people, Suriname's 630,000, and French Guiana's 300,000, they only reach a total of 1.7 million inhabitants. There are as many as 36 metropolitan areas in the rest of South America that possess a larger population than all three of these Guianas combined. From Barranquilla in Colombia to Rosario in Argentina or Belém in Brazil. All South American countries have low population densities compared to the rest of the planet, but in the Guianas, this is even more pronounced. Specifically, Guyana has 4.2 people living per square kilometer, Suriname has 4, and French Guiana has 3.5. Think about it. The only country in the world with a lower density is Mongolia. All other South American countries have low densities, but the gap is still immense. Bolivia has 11 inhabitants per square kilometer, 3 times that of French Guiana. The country with the highest density is Ecuador with 73 people, the only one exceeding the world average. The low population density of the Guianas region is partly explained by its terrain. About 80% to 90% of the population settles in a narrow strip along the coast. This is because if we move away from the coastal area, we encounter the Guiana Shield, Guiana Highlands, a region very difficult for agriculture and human settlement. For example, one of Suriname's administrative districts, named Sipilawini, occupies 80% of the country's area, but is home to only 37,000 people. This statistic is very interesting. It is the percentage of rainforest area in each country. French Guiana tops the list with over 95%, and all 3 Guianas are among the 4 countries with the largest forest percentages in the world. They are almost open-air forests with small inhabited corners nestled on the Atlantic coast. The fact that the Guianas countries have many cultural differences with their neighbors is also related to the defiance of the terrain where they are situated. Consider how difficult it was to access this region several centuries ago when it was being colonized, if even today they remain almost pristine lands. That explains why the Spaniards and Portuguese, despite having divided this region, did not prioritize settling here, which allowed the British, Dutch, and French to set foot in South America. In this way, the urban centers of Georgetown, Paramaribo, and Cayenne developed in connection with other European metropolises and began paths parallel to their neighbors with very few points of contact. Therefore, the Guianas function almost like an archipelago in the Atlantic, connecting more with the rest of the Caribbean nations despite being located on the mainland of South America. In fact, both Guyana and Suriname are members of CARICOM, an international organization gathering Caribbean nations that has existed for half a century, and the headquarters of CARICOM is even located in Georgetown, the capital of Guyana. Although often presented as a unified entity, the truth is that the relationships between the Guianas countries are very complex, as many border disputes dating back to colonial times still exist. Suriname claims territorial sovereignty in both the east and the west. They claim the land between the Litani and Marouini rivers from France and the area called Tigre, spanning no less than 15,000 square kilometers from Guyana. For Guyana, this is a less severe dispute because on their other border, they face an extensive sovereignty claim from Venezuela over the Essequibo region, with Caracas demanding no less than 160,000 square kilometers for the Guayana Essequibo region. Consequently, only 18% of Guyana's national territory is undisputed, as Venezuela claims 75% in the west and Suriname claims 17% in the southeast. We just mentioned Guayana Essequibo, which might raise a question: is there yet another Guayana region? Yes, that is what was known in colonial times as Spanish Guayana and later became Venezuelan Guayana, encompassing the southeastern part of that country. But in reality, there are not 4 but 5. Further east appears Portuguese Guiana, later changed to Brazilian Guiana, which today largely corresponds to the state of Amapá with its capital Macapá, a unique city because it is where the Amazon River empties into the Atlantic Ocean. Through this estuary, 1/5 of the global freshwater is discharged into the oceans from the mainland. Today, the Guianas countries remain a sparsely populated land, rarely explored by tourists, and almost a mystery. There is no continuous national highway connecting them to each other. To travel back and forth, one must take a ferry at both the French-Suriname border and the Suriname-Guyana border. As for traveling between Guyana and Venezuela, one should not even attempt it, as there are no open border checkpoints due to the ongoing conflict they maintain, so passing through Brazil is mandatory if one wishes to travel between them. And if we begin a journey by car, let us not forget that Guyana and Suriname have a major difference from the rest. People there drive on the left side of the road. How do you envision the future of this region? Do you think that at some point it will become more connected with the rest of South America? Leave your comments below.